This is the MOQI i7S, or the MOQI Gaming Phone as they call it on Indiegogo. This device is an Android smartphone and a gaming handheld hybrid, housing a Snapdragon 710 and 6GB of RAM. This phone was announced in November 2018 and came out in February 2019. It is an upgraded model to the MOQI i7, a device with an identical build and design but with a way slower MediaTek chipset. The i7S is pretty much just an internal hardware revision, just like Apple with the iPhone 6 and iPhone 6S. So the MOQI i7S is a phone first and foremost. It features a 6-inch OLED screen in 1920 by 1080 with 64 gigs of storage, 2 back-facing speakers, a 60-megapixel rear-facing camera, and a 5-megapixel front-facing camera. It also has dual SIM card slots like many Chinese phones do. The battery is 6000 mAh and a liquid cooling similar to Xiaomi's Poco phone is also present here. However, it doesn't feature any fingerprint sensor or waterproofing. Signal isn't half bad and it's on par with other standard Android phones out there. The i7S also has a micro SD card slot, a headphone jack, and an USB-C supporting Quick Charge 3.0, but not display out. Both ports are on the left side of the phone if you're holding it vertically, or bottom if you're holding it sideways like a PS Vita. Speaking of the Vita, the gamepad on the MOQI i7S are quite similar to a Vita's, featuring 2 analog sticks, a D-pad, 1 set of shoulder buttons, and 4 face buttons with ancient Chinese symbols representing sun, moon, water, and mountain instead of the standard A, B, X, Y, and 2 capacitive select and start buttons. The analog stick most resembles ones on the Switch, while the D-pad feels like the one on the Vita, but in my opinion it actually surpasses it. Minus the start and select, all the buttons are clicky like a PS Vita, and it feels like it can take some abuse. While I personally wish the start and select buttons are physical instead of capacitive, it could have used another set of shoulder buttons and clickable sticks as well. As for the software, it is running Android Oreo 8.1 with a proprietary launcher from MOQI called the MOQI UI, which very frustratedly ties app launching to this launcher only, meaning if you ever install any other launchers like Nova launchers, it disables any app you install until you go into the settings, power, then auto start, and manually toggling individual apps back on. The reasoning behind this is apparently to save battery, but I find this very annoying and there's unfortunately no way to not use this as of now. The color contrast also seems to be a bit calibrated badly, with image appearing way too dark, and I had to use third-party apps like Color Calibrator to adjust manually. Since this is a Chinese branded phone which was shipped from China, it doesn't come with Google services out of the box. Instead, it has their own store, which apparently looks like it has pirated APKs on. However, you can contact the staff over at MOQI with the built-in forum app, email them or give them a text on WeChat, and send them your device serial number, and they will send you an update with all the Google Play services. It is kind of annoying you have to go through all these to get Google services, but that's how you have to do it if you get this device. Comes included with MOQI UI are 2 apps, MOQI Helper and Key DIY. MOQI Helper lets you map any on-screen virtual keys from a game onto a physical key, adding controller supports for games that don't officially support it like PUBG. It lets you adjust even the finer controls such as sensitivity and the analog stick movement speed. It also has a feature called Key Macro that lets you set a combination of keys into one single press that helps with pulling off combos in fighting games. MOQI Helper also lets you share and download layouts created by other users, giving support for some of the even more obscure games. The other app, Key DIY, lets you swap any of the physical buttons to any buttons on a full-size controller. This app is meant for apps and games that supports gamepad natively, like GTA, Minecraft, and all sorts of emulators. So for example, let's say a game requires secondary triggers. And since the i7S only has 1 set, this app lets you swap any of the keys to those triggers, and the game will recognize the key press as the secondary triggers, which is really helpful. You can also use this app to map keys as system buttons. So as for myself, I've mapped the start button as home button and the select button as the recent app buttons. So the elephant in the room, how well does it play games? Some of you might think that the Snapdragon isn't quite fast enough for emulation or games in general. Yes, it would have been nice to have the Snapdragon 845 instead, but if you put the raw benchmark score aside, it actually performs quite well in real-world uses. On top of that, with a 1080p panel, there are way less pixels to push comparing to phones with a Quad HD panel. And personally, I say this is the ultimate gaming phone. It is really nice having the option to map virtual keys to physical ones to games that don't support it. Demanding games like PUBG runs at around 60 FPS with medium settings, and playing games like Minecraft and GTA with an actual controller just makes the game feel so much nicer. And it's really cool playing some smaller indie games on this device like Hotline Miami and all. What this device stands out the most to me, and one of the main reasons I bought this device for, is for the emulation. Some games seems like it's just meant to be played on this device. So first up, both PSP and DS emulator plays really well on this device. Both being able to run at high resolution, with some DS games having widescreen support, like Mario Kart DS and Mario 64 DS. And some PSP games having dual analog and 60 FPS patch, like GTA and Kingdom Hearts. I think this is the perfect device for these older games. I also believe DS emulation is more mature on Android than on Windows, so that's one bonus point for this device over the original GPD Win. But what surprised me the most was this device actually plays Dolphin. Outside of GameCube, it actually runs a handful of Wii titles as well. Yes, some games will run better than others, and most Wii games are hit and miss. But ones that do, I have a blast playing on this device, like Monster Hunter, Resident Evil 4, and Smash. And surprisingly, Mario Galaxy, a game that sometimes struggles to run on even my laptop, runs pretty decent, but I still wouldn't call it perfect. One thing to mention is the liquid cooling of the i7S never gets the device more than mildly warm, so it never gets uncomfortable to hold like the GPD Win. I'm not gonna go over some of the older consoles like the Super Nintendo and the PS1, since if it runs Wii, it'll pretty much run any other older console just fine. But don't expect running PS2 on this device. The battery on the i7S is really good. I've been using the device for almost a month now, and playing demanding games like PUBG or Dolphin should be a battery killer, but even playing it extensively every day for about 4 or 5 hours a day, I was only able to get it down to 70% from fully charged. So it goes to show, if you're not playing games on the device, you'll be able to get at least 2 days of battery on it. And for users that are looking to root their device or install custom ROMs, the lack of exposure right now means there's pretty much no way to install custom recoveries or custom ROMs. But if there were ever any, the i7S is ready to do so, since buried within developer option is the toggle to turn on OEM unlocking. Comparing to similar devices like the GPD XT Plus, the i7S has its pros and cons. Pros being the way better specs and build quality, and I personally prefer the PSP form factor over the 3DS clamshell. While cons: having an awful proprietary launcher and a lack of secondary shoulder buttons like the GPD-XD has. However, since they both cost about the same, with the i7S just being a tiny bit more expensive, I'd personally go for the MOQI i7S any day. Speaking of price, I personally got the device on Taobao for £260 or $340 which is way cheaper than what they were charging over on Indiegogo back when they were hosting their campaign for $400 as an early adopter price, with the full price being a whopping $700. I personally would never pay $700 for this device, and I don't recommend any of you do, unless you can find it for a good price like I did. Unfortunately, on Taobao they only ship units within China. So overall, I think this phone is great from a gaming aspect, but if you're looking for a phone that does phone stuff well, this is probably not the phone for you. But for ones that are into emulators and playing some PUBG and Fortnite here and there, I think this phone beats out all the other gaming phone out there. Should you get this device over GPD Win 2? Well, it depends. You're not going to be able to play PUBG on the Win 2 as well as you can on the i7S, but you're also losing out on PC game support. But in terms of niche Chinese Android handhelds, despite my gripes with it, I still think this is the best out there, beating out even the GPD-XD Plus or anything from JXD. So there's my review for the MOQI i7S. Thanks for watching. If you like it, please help share the video or subscribe, as I'll be uploading more games running on this device in the future. If you got any more questions, just leave it in the comments. Anyway, thanks for watching and see you guys next time.